my colleague Jemimah stayed up all night with her because she kept on saying she was going to kill herself.
I remember the first case I responded to where the survivor had said she was going to kill herself. At that time, I had not been a Christian for like 3 years. But I had to stay with the survivor and pray with her for hours because she was trying to pray and she said she couldn't find the words. My name is Jemimah Inyangudo. I am a communications officer at TechHR. I'm a first responder for KURAM, TechHR's online gender-based violence incident reporting and response platform. What this means is whenever people experience cases of digital violence or any form of violence online, they reach out to us and I reassure them. I connect them with the legal service that they need for them to be able to seek remediation for that form of violence that they have experienced. It also involves being empathetic, being kind, not crying with the survivor, even though you want to cry with them because most times the violence is quite traumatic. It means being there and holding their hands across states just with the reach of a phone call. It means telling them that they are seen, their cases are urgent, and the violence that they experience is very much real. As a communications person at TechHR, I've been involved in various research that our organization has done and our various outreaches as well. So one of the things that we are very keen on at TechHR is to tell people, to teach people rather, about the various forms of online violence. But we're also keen on giving people an avenue for them to be able to report this violence. I remember the first time I got a case, someone had reached out to me informally via my personal social media account. And they did that because they know how much I champion my organization's work. And being able to stay with that person in that time where they felt like all was lost meant the entire world to them. And that was the first time I responded to a case. We have various case officers who respond to cases. But the first time I responded to that case, I knew that that's one of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to reassure people that the violence that they experience is real. One of the things that we noticed with our research is that traditional platforms of reporting takes away the dignity of survivors whenever they make reports for these cases. And I wanted to be able to give that back to them. I wanted to be able to be a support system to them and tell them that TechHR is an organization that is willing to stand 10 toes on helping them get the justice that they deserve. As technology evolves, so will digital violence. And one of the things that we've learned is that people do not take the violence that other people experience online seriously. It's just internet, not just bands. If there is no scar, was there really a harm? And that keeps me going. Every time I see that there is someone who knows less about digital violence as much as they should, I ensure that I create a response that attracts those people who do not know as much as they should about violence. My motivation is the current level of digital literacy that exists because it can really be you, whether you know it now or not. It might not be today, it could be in 3 weeks, it could be in a year actually. And it could be someone that you know even though you're not the direct respondent of this violence.
My name is Chioma Agwuegbo. I'm the Executive Director at TechHR. TechHR is a community of learning, support, and collaboration for women who use technology either as the core of their functions or as an add-on for the things that they do. In simple English, TechHR wants women and girls to access, understand, and utilize technology safely and meaningfully. TechHR was incorporated in 2018, and we have 3 streams of work. The first of them is digital literacy, which is all things welcoming women and girls to the beautiful world of the internet. We also have tech for governance, which then explores the challenges that these women have, these girls have, when they come to this beautiful world of the internet, and does a number of things including advocacy, policy, training, game production, manuals, research, you name it, we've done it. And the final strand of our work, which is the one I kind of love the most, is community. This is because beautiful things happen when women come together. And TechHer will take every opportunity we can to bring women together to either have a drink, have a bite, have a conversation, understand this technology that they are using or they are trying to use, answer questions, talk about things like keeping children safe online, talk about expanding their businesses, breaking new ground, new networks, etc. That's what we do at TechHer. The second strand of our work, which is Tech for Governance, opened us up to technology-facilitated gender-based violence in 2021. And supported by Digital Defenders Partnerships, we researched TFGBV. We wanted to understand why are the women and girls we're bringing online leaving. As a matter of fact, one of our very first cases was a secondary school student who had been sent pictures and videos of her teacher's penis because he told her he wanted her to see what he had been showing them in textbooks. And so the team was alarmed, and one of the things we said to ourselves was, we can't bear the burden of knowing that in our quest to bring women and girls online, we are opening children, we're opening young people, we're opening women to abuse. And so we researched online violence, and we found that 1 in 6 women have faced or will face online violence or tech-facilitated gender-based violence. The sad thing is a lot of people do not know that they have faced violence, do not know that they are facing violence, and a lot of the perpetrators do not know that what they are doing online is violent. As a matter of fact, sometimes you hear things like, this is bants, or it's agenda, or it's content, or they're fooling around. But online violence has real-world consequences for both the perpetrators and especially the victims. And so we decided to start to educate people, and this is very important because our work with tech-facilitated gender-based violence is two-pronged. There's the awareness-raising part of it, and then there's the trust-building part of it. We started creating awareness. This is what tech-facilitated gender-based violence is. This is what it looks like. This is what it presents like. These are the ramifications. This is how to know if you have been abused or if you have suffered violence. But more importantly, here are the things that you can do. I like to say that we started this work because we wanted people to first understand, and so that in understanding, they would be able to take action. In building out a body of work around tech-facilitated gender-based violence, we found out a few things. That the women and the girls we had told, this is not acceptable, this is criminal. As a matter of fact, there are some laws in Nigeria, even though our laws are not enough, and some of them are ambiguous and very largely unhelpful. There are some laws that can be, via the Interpretation Act, used to prosecute online violence. And so when we told women and girls that, listen, there is an opportunity for remediation, there's an opportunity for justice, they started looking for this justice. And a number of them would go online and try to use, the native reporting platforms within the social media platforms where the abuse occurred. And then we found out a few things. One, they would almost never get a response, or because the platforms lack the context and the nuance to respond to the violence, they would get responses like, this doesn't constitute a violation of our policies. We also found out that there was a lot of shame. Women didn't want to report, this has happened to me, this person is asking for money, otherwise they will leak my nudes, this person is blackmailing me, this person is, all those types of things. So there was shame. We also found out that there's, the culture of silence in Nigeria that we experience with sexual and gender-based violence also goes online. And a lot of the survivors were afraid of retaliation. If I report this person, what will his friends do, etc. And then finally, we had a lack of trust. Because people had reported in the past and nothing happened, there was just I'll rather just go offline than try to report again. And so TechHer decided to create something called KURAM. KURAM in TIV, a language from one of Nigeria's states, means keep me safe. And we felt like this phrase was super apt in describing what we wanted to do. We want women to be safe online. Like I said earlier, our mission is for women and girls to access, understand, and use technology safely first before they can use it meaningfully. And so we built out KURAM in March of 2023. I remember the launch day like it was yesterday. And we said to people, let us be the bridge. Let us be the unconvoluted, straight path between survivors of online violence and the justice that they seek. Let us hold your hand as you navigate the sometimes, difficult, messy, opaque reporting systems that exist across social media platforms. And the reason for this is simple. One of the cases we've handled, there was a group on Telegram recruiting people via Facebook, WhatsApp, and Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to go on WhatsApp, pay a fee, join this WhatsApp group, and receive the nudes of a female. Now, if you ask, when this female came to us, one of the first things she said was, I'm going to kill myself, because where do I start from? How do you then start to deal with the violence that's occurring on all these platforms? And these people who were selling her nudes were releasing teasers. So a bit of her breast here, a bit of her bum there, to entice people to join this WhatsApp group, which was paid, for them to now receive these videos bit by bit. Now, reporting for that type of person, you have to report across all of these platforms. It's convoluted. This person is already panicking, already feeling very vulnerable. She was a student in university, and she was like, I'm going to get rusticated. And this is where we stepped in. And the first thing we did, because we are trusted partners with Meta, we were able to get Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp sorted. But we still had the Telegram group, and Telegram doesn't have a trust and safety team. And so what did we do? We then involved the police, and the perpetrators were arrested. Long story short, all the content was taken down. It hasn't come up till today. And this girl, I think, should be graduating soon if she hasn't graduated. This is the work that we do. This is what I mean by being the bridge. The bridge across all the platforms, the bridge that then takes the work offline, the bridge that holds the hand of the survivor. I remember my colleague Jemimah stayed up all night with her because she kept on saying she was going to kill herself. And so when Jemimah rang me at about 2 o'clock in the morning to say, this girl is saying she's going to kill herself. And I'm like, well, we're all awake now because I can't go to sleep if you're going to be awake with this survivor. People think that you tweet something or you post something on Facebook or on TikTok and it's a joke and it goes away. There is such a ripple effect of pain and of trauma and of just confusion that these things open up to survivors. And this is why we do the work that we do.
A typical case is urgent. It's always urgent. Whether the person is being catfished, whether the person has been hacked, whether the person is experiencing non-consensual intimate image sharing. A typical case of online violence is always so urgent because immediately it has reached another person's phone, immediately it's on the internet. Its capacity to spread far and wide is literally beyond our imagination. A typical case means I'm reaching out to our volunteer lawyers network to speak to them and say which lawyer is on ground, regardless of how many cases we currently have or how many cases they are currently handling. Can you take a case? Okay, if you cannot take a case, who can I move this case to? And also how we partner with other organizations who handle such cases that are beyond our ambit. An example is responding to child online violence. We do not directly respond to it, but because of the level of reach our organization is doing on online violence, we get a lot of cases on online violence. This means having to transfer that case while still reassuring the survivor that you are on it, that you are with them and you are for them. This means following up with the other organization to ensure that the survivor who has been in your care receives the exact care that they need. The first thing I do when I receive a case of someone in distress is I have to reassure them. I have to reassure them that they matter and it is not their fault. And I think that's one of the most difficult parts of the job because when someone reports a case to you, they are filled with so much guilt. Even though they are not the one at fault, the pain is rife. They are filled with so much shame that is not theirs to hold. So you have to help them walk through that mental torture because this also determines if they want to go ahead with the case or not. How you respond to a survivor is very, very critical to them knowing if they're going to get justice or not. So immediately they report the case to me, I reassure them, I tell them the steps that we're going to be taking on that case. But I also have to provide them with personal safety tips on how they can ensure that they feel protected while we get on the legal aspects of the case.
The challenges that our first responders face are numerous. And I'd like to say that the first one is the survivor. Because we are very survivor-centered, we are guided by them, we are led by them. And when a survivor says stop, we stop. When they say go, we go. We explain to them what the process is, how our interventions work. We get them to sign a document that allows us to act in their stead, and then we start to reach out to the partners that we need to reach out. In some cases, it's the social media platforms, and that's really easy because you just take things down. In some other cases, you have to engage with the justice system in Nigeria, which is not very straightforward for a number of reasons. One, because there's not enough urgency paid to gender-based violence. And I say this because when a man is killed, a man has been killed. When a woman is killed, we call it gender-based violence. And so in some ways, we downplay the fact that a woman has been killed and a life has been lost. And so we have to first deal with that barrier, the mental thing of this is violence that has occurred, this is a crime that has occurred. And then you have to think about things like, is the police going to investigate, for instance? Sometimes we are called upon to facilitate the investigation of some of these cases, which we are not allowed to do, or which can become a bit convoluted. And so sometimes the process drags on. Unfortunately, while this process is dragging on, the ubiquity of the internet means that the perpetuity of this violence continues every second. As we know and as we have seen sometimes, a video goes up online, and even though you take it down, some people have downloaded it and they want to use it for their own content later. And so I remember seeing and having to speak to a group of women to tell them that when you see child pornography online, maybe a child has been sexualized and the video is online, you are not doing anyone any good by downloading the video and then uploading it with your face giving advice. No, you are distributing child pornography. You are not doing anyone any good by forwarding it to everybody to say, don't film your children. No, you are distributing child pornography, and it is criminal.
I'm heavily affected by being a first responder. The first time I took on a case, I was sick for 3 days. I couldn't sleep because of the horrors of what the perpetrator had threatened to do to this person were written in such a graphic way, so graphic that because I had read the messages that the person had sent, and I could hear the voice of the survivor saying, please help me. If you don't help me, I'll kill myself, I'll die. It's so terrible. It has made me lose interest in being on the internet. I used to be such an internet person. I love to tweet my opinions and my thoughts, but I can't do that anymore because you don't know what you will say to someone that will offend them for them to pick your picture to do whatever they want to do with it. You don't know what you say to someone that will make them feel like they have the right to have access to you. There are times when I feel completely overwhelmed. This is not just the experience of the survivor at this point, but the response of law enforcement to the cases that we get. You, as a first responder, it's your work to ensure that this person, the survivor, is reassured. It's your work to ensure that there is a proper communication channel between the law and law enforcement. And when one communication channel lags, the other one is just left hanging. And you, as a survivor, have no feedback to give to the survivor whom you are supposed to, you as a first responder rather, have no feedback to give to the survivor whom you're supposed to be catering to. What I do in those instances to detach myself, to understand that it is not my fault that I'm experiencing this, but it is great that we have a response mechanism that allows us to get the data needed for policy changes in the country. It is great that I have colleagues who are willing to support me and listen to me, and we could strategically work around cases regardless of the barriers that we are currently experiencing. So it can be overwhelming, but I think I'm lucky to have a system that makes it very easy to walk through those distressing times. One of the biggest challenges that we face with survivors opening up is sociocultural norms. There's a stereotype that we have in our society about things that are sexual. They are so shameful that survivors find it very difficult, even though they have reached out to us, for them to open up to say the full extent of the conversation that happened and how they got to where they are. It is very interesting that even in times when people make these kinds of reports, they are so focused on how other people see them. Everybody wants to be a perfect victim. Unfortunately, that is one of the things that we're trying to erase from our response. We're trying to help survivors know that even in times when you have consciously shared these images, it is still not your fault that someone has violated your privacy. And this makes it very interesting because in the time when we start speaking to them, we start working with them through the conversations that had happened and how they got to where they are. We get to see that they become relaxed, especially because it is in no judgment zone. It is a very private conversation and really confidential. When survivors start seeing that, when we start gaining their trust, we realize that the rapport becomes easy. They become more honest. We've had incidents of where a case was reported to me. And when the survivor was done talking, I read through the case and I researched a lot about those cases that have happened before. And I realized that they were not being honest. And they were not being honest because of the person who had reported this case with them. And they were part of this case that they did not want that other person to know. One of the things that I love about TechHer's reporting mechanisms is we are so survivor focused. It has to be the survivor's means. It has to be the survivor's comfort that is priority.
TechHer just turned 7, and we've spent some time reflecting on what we are doing, but also the things that we want to do in the future. And while it looks like tech-facilitated gender-based violence is the core of our work, and why not, seeing as cases are just increasing exponentially day on day, we want to go back to our first love, which is digital literacy, because we do believe that technology has the power to change lives. We do believe that technology is an opportunity for women and girls to exit poverty, to change unfavorable circumstances in their lives. So digital literacy is something we want to go back to. Beyond that, we've been thinking about building out a feminist tech lab. And the reason for this is simple. There's quite a bit that needs to be done as far as tech-facilitated gender-based violence is concerned, whether it is research, whether it is collaboration with partners, whether it is coordination of response across the justice system, across the continent, whether it is the formulation and implementation of a set of principles that guide the way we use the internet. There's so much that needs to be done. We want to ensure that there is safety in the formulation of all of this. We want to be sure that there is safety by design. We want to be sure that we are not going to be solving for problems after they have been created, and with that, rather, we can avoid the creation of those problems. The final thing we want to do as we think about our work on tech-facilitated gender-based violence is support for our team. Everything we have said today has shown not just the violence that the survivors face, but the violence that our responders face in responding to these cases. The fact that they have to be up at night, the fact that, interestingly, we receive most of our cases in the middle of the night, the fact that we have to interface and view and just engage with so many forms of violence because we are supporting survivors. So we're increasing our basket of support for our team members, and that's something that's really important to us. And finally, I guess it's just to continue the awareness, continue the education, also continue the trust building. In the first year of response, we got less than 10 cases, but these cases have grown significantly year on year because more people trust us to work with them, to hold their hands to access justice. So yeah, those are our plans for the next 5 years, for the foreseeable future. Talking about the forms of violence we've seen in the line of our work is something that is always very eye-opening for me, because you think you have a set of problems in one basket and all of a sudden another thing comes up, thereby expanding the forms of violence survivors will face. I'll talk about one of these things, which is content monetization. Before, people would just produce content, post it online. People were motivated by revenge, especially in the cases of like revenge porn, sextortion, etc. People were motivated by anger. People were motivated by malicious intent, etc. They have a new motivation now, which is money. Because with monetization comes Forex, and seeing as Nigeria has faced, inflation in the past few years, more people are interested in foreign currency, which means that more people will be daring and they want to push the boundaries to see what forms of content they can produce to make money. Quick example, a lady was standing by the side of the road. 2 men walk up to her and say, her skirt is short, they want her to go home. And she says, I don't know you guys, you have no right to walk up to me. Bear in mind, these men are filming without her consent. And then they pour water on her. They have a bucket of water that they pour on her. So they've drenched her, thereby exposing her body. And so women come around and they wrap her with a wrapper, and it gets really ugly. The crazy thing from this story is they filmed her without her consent. They humiliated her in public without her, they humiliated her in public, and then they published these videos on their social media. So essentially, not only did they film without her consent, they profited from her humiliation because of the views that the videos got. And then of course, that's how they make their money. We've seen several instances. I mean, one of the most painful cases that we had to work with a partner to resolve, a man filmed his daughter, who was about 2 or 3 years old, wearing a garter. She was essentially wearing a stripper outfit, and he would film her in several positions in the house, at a club, in a bar, sitting with his friends. And he said he was trying to be a content creator, and all of his content forms weren't working, but he noticed that whenever he dressed his toddler in leather and gave her a whip and placed her online, he would get thousands of comments. We got the content taken down. We also worked with a partner in his state to get him arrested. But the truth is, if you listened to the man, just say very vehemently that no one had ever touched his baby girl, and all he was doing was trying to find a way for them to feed, you will realize why the work we do is so important. Because in the case of this man, what he'd done was criminal, yes, but he did this thinking that he was trying to feed his child, and so that bit about education is crucial. Also, on the forms of violence, we have gender disinformation, which is where people manipulate or publish extreme falsehood to either, discredit a person, damage their credibility, or just, be malicious and be vicious and be wicked. We also need to talk about the fact that what is violent for one person might not be violent for another, and what I might consider not to be violent can be extremely violent for another person. For instance, we've had a Muslim lady reach out to us, a hijabbed lady reach out to us to say someone had used AI tools to remove her hijab and was threatening to publish the video. And she was fearing for her life because she's from a really conservative community, and she feared she was going to be physically harmed. For some other people, nudes are the violence, but for this lady, just removing the covering from her head was the extreme form of violence, which would then put her in risk or put her at risk of physical violence. So these are some of the forms of violence that we see on a daily basis, sometimes weekly. And so our work of education is critical to tell people that, especially with generated videos that take on a form of truth but are actually absolutely false, these are criminal. People can be prosecuted, but also the effects of these violence last for years and years for the survivors.